as the Christ awakens within each one of us. Wherever you are, I'd like you to take a moment to realize your connection with all these other beings that are participating in their own healing as well as the healing of this world we live in. That even though our actions might appear different, that our heart's desire as spiritual beings is the same. And so we are in this somewhat electronic circle at Unity of Louisville, and yet also in a very expansive way we are connected with all beings, especially those who have dedicated themselves consciously to their own healing and the healing of the world. And as you realize that, however you realize that, you come into the awareness that none of us are doing this alone. None of us are doing this by ourselves. That even in the darkest times of our lives, someone has been holding the light for us when we could not hold it for ourselves. And so here we are in this sacred space that we have created through our love, through our devotion, for our desire for healing. As the truth of the Christ awakens within each one of us and begins to show itself in its unique way through the vehicle of our bodies and personalities that we have both chosen and created for this part of our journey. Breathing deeply now, take a moment to rest in the truth. And as you gently return to your consciousness in the material world, notice what it is that you take with you from the silence. Gently allow yourself to be embraced by it. You have chosen the gift, but the gift has also chosen you. Breathing deeply, stretching a bit. Before opening your eyes, remember and remind yourself, I am not alone. As the world heals within me, I also heal the world around me. And for that I give thanks. I give thanks. I give thanks.
I am light, I am light. 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 I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I'm not the mistakes that I have made, or any other things that cause me pain. I am not the pieces of the dreams I left behind. I am light. 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 I am not the color of my eyes. I am not the skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is all light. I am 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 light. Yes, I am light. I am light. I am divinity defined. I am the God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all. I am light.
What a great song. Thank you. As I was listening to that, I was thinking about all of the things we kind of strip away that are not who we are. And years ago, after I would do something like that, I would wonder what's left. Because I was so identified with that personality, that ego consciousness that I thought I was. When I got rid of all of that stuff, or just even for a moment imagine what it would be like not to have that, I wasn't sure what was left. These days I am sure. There's an image that has kept coming to my mind that that song reminded me of, and actually our Sunday school class reminded me of too. In the 60s and early 70s, we used to talk a lot about our uniqueness, saying, that you're kind of like a snowflake, that none are never going to repeat themselves. The pattern is just once. And I remember I used to get off on that. That it really was enlightening in some ways, and yet I wasn't really very comfortable with who I am, or who I was, or how I saw myself. And so this idea about being unique was somewhat questionable to me. I was kind of like, oleomargarine that wanted to be butter. Or if I was a grape, I wanted to be a banana. I never was quite satisfied with what I looked like, or how I was, or how I felt. And as the years have progressed, especially in the learnings that I've been working with the past couple of years, I've come to a new understanding of all of that. And the metaphor, the image that keeps coming back to me is that if you can imagine yourself as being sort of like one of these old-fashioned lanterns with oil and a wick inside, and there's a light that glows from the dark, glows in that inside of that, and there's kind of glass panes around the outside. And no matter what's going on with the glass panes on the outside, the light is still shining just as brightly as it ever would. The light that is shining in that lantern is the divine self of who you are, the truth of who you are. Now, for most of us, the glass around the outside is a little bit sooty or a little bit dirty, and we need to clean it off somewhat. And that's all well and good. That's sort of the work we do on ourselves in terms of forgiveness, in terms of self-esteem, self-love, all of the other stuff, all of the other spiritual structures that we've kind of developed for ourselves. But what happens eventually is when the glass becomes clear and the light can shine through more or better than it had been before, the light shines through that glass. The glass is your personality or your ego consciousness. The light shines through that, but is affected by that. In other words, it comes through that glass in a very unique way that is never going to be repeated. So this personality or this ego consciousness that we've all spent years in building up, and we don't come to a crashing halt and say, well, let's just throw that away. Agreed, that's not who you are. But it's not the truth of who you are. And yet it is the lens through which the divine shines through. And the divine shines through as you or as me in a very unique way that will never be historically repeated ever again. Because there never will be a person like you or like me with this particular individual growth, this particular individual karma, this particular individual personality or ego structure that I've created. The light will never shine through that particular lens again as it's shining through you right now. What would it be like to remember that? What would it be like to remember that? And also to know that, as try as you might, you can't turn the light off. Oh, I could never be a spark of divine light, at least not today. I feel so horrible, I feel so awful. You can never turn out the light. Awareness and choice. By the way, the only way you can have choice, real choice, is by being aware. This is a little story about a little girl whose name was Missy, who taught me a lesson in awareness that I never forgot and hope I never will. My father was dying in a hospital in Upper New York State. I was home. I was teaching at St. X at the time, and I took a leave to go home. And he was in a coma. The doctors said he was not going to come out of that he was going to release his body sometime or another. My mother and I were both smokers back then. So we would take turns waiting in the ICU waiting room. One of us would go down, one of us would always be there, but there would be sometimes when one of us would be downstairs smoking outside and sometimes not. One of the times when my mom was gone, and I was sitting there reading a 2-year-old Lady Holmes journal or something like that, a little girl came in with a wheelchair, and she had a little teddy bear sitting in the wheelchair. And she wheeled it into the room, just adorable looking little kid. And usually, even in a moment like that, I'm such an introvert. I didn't want to be engaged. I was grieving. I was sad. I didn't want anything happy in my life. But somehow or another, I was moved to ask this little girl what her name was. She said her name was Missy, and she had kind of a cleft. I think she had a cleft palate. That's what it sounded like, and I'm not sure whether that's why she was in the hospital or not. But we talked a little bit about her bear. She told me a little bit about her teddy bear and what was going on with her today. And we kind of conversed for about 2 or 3 minutes. And then my mom came in. My mom loved kids. And they kind of conversed a little bit more about teddy bears and dolls and all kinds of other stuff. And after about 2 or 3 minutes of that, Nurse Ratchet came in and gave Missy the riot act, all right? And Missy just very calmly picked up her little teddy bear and sat in the wheelchair and put the bear in her lap, and the nurse wheeled her out. Never saw her again. But I often wonder or think to myself what I would have missed if I did not engage that little girl. And sometimes I wonder, you know, are things like that happening to me all the time? People showing up or incidents showing up in my life that somehow or another I am so wrapped up in my own stuff that I am oblivious to it, that I've been asleep or unaware, that I've been in what I call robot mode. You know, that you know, there have been many times in life when I've sort of woken up and I say, you know, I know I went to work all this week. I know I know I had dinner. I know I cooked this or I did this or I did that. But where was I? I wasn't here. I was so wrapped up in my own stuff, I wasn't even present to what I was doing. It's like there's a Sheldon Kopp, a psychiatrist out of Washington, D.C., who's written a number of books, had one book called Here I Am, Wasn't I?, which I thought was just a perfect rendition of what I mean when I talk about going into robot mode of being so asleep, or so wrapped up sometimes in my own self-importance that I don't see or feel or hear anything else that's going on around me. Imagine what it would be like you wake up in the morning. And this doesn't necessarily have to be you. You can paint a picture of somebody else if you want to. You wake up in the morning and you look out the window, even out of the corner of your eye, and you see the sun shining. You say, oh, good. It's been raining for about a week. So you start feeling good that the sun's shining today. The flowers are going to be blooming. The birds are going to be chirping, blah, blah, blah. You get up feeling good because the sun's shining, and then you walk into the bathroom, and there are towels all over the floor. So now my mood's changed. I have to pick up all the towels, to put them in the hamper, do this, do that. But then I'm happy because there's still some hot water. And as I get out of the shower and I'm drying myself off, you know, I smell some toasted English muffins from downstairs in the coffee, and I go, oh, good, there's some coffee. So I feel good again. And then I go to get dressed, and I bend over the wrong way, and I rip my pair of underwear. My favorite pair of underwear just ripped. So I feel bad again. And then I get downstairs, and I find out that the coffee that smelled so good upstairs is all gone. And I go through my whole day like that. This circumstance or that circumstance, kind of correcting or guiding my feelings in one way or another. And I have to stop and ask every once in a while, where am I in all of this? You know, am I constantly involved so much in what's going on in the outside world that I identify with all of the things that are going on around there, and those are the things that affect all of my feelings, and they kind of create my reality. Well, where am I? What am I waiting for? I'm waiting for something good to make me happy, if that's where it's going to come from, but it isn't. And we already know that. We already know. So let's just take a moment right now. Can you imagine right now, or get a sense of right now, how much you are loved in this moment? By anybody, even by yourself. How much am I loved in this moment? I say that, and I remember, this was probably about a year or so ago. I was, most of you know how I feel about my grandson Finn. We've got sort of a very special connection, which I'm extremely grateful for. But I remember one moment, a couple of years ago, I think it was. I looked at him and I said, "Do you know how much I love you?" And I didn't expect an answer. I didn't expect a reply. And he didn't say anything. He just turned around and looked at me. But I could tell by looking in his eyes what he was saying. He says, "Yes, I do. And I love you back." What would I have missed if I didn't ask that question, or if I wasn't willing to receive the answer? In this moment, do you realize how much you are loved? Now, once you ask yourself a question like that, if you do occasionally, what you have to do is you have to sort of pop into another form of awareness that we do it all the time, but we're not used to being conscious of it. I pop into what some spiritual teachers would call the witness, or the observer self. The observer self is not a judgmental sort of thing. It's simply a piece of our awareness that lets us come a little bit closer to what's going on in our lives and how I am reacting to it. And not only what is going on in my life and how I'm reacting to it, but what I can do differently if I'd like to do something differently. So as the Course in Miracles says, you know, if you don't like what you're doing, choose again. Choose once again. I can choose differently. But I can only choose when I'm aware that the choice that I'm making already isn't working for me. I don't know about you, but sometimes it takes a really long time for me to realize something's not working. Either the way I'm thinking, or the way I'm acting, or the solutions that I've seemed to have invented for a particular problem or something like that. I have to realize that they are not working in order for me to be able to make a choice, to be able to make some changes. Now, if I were to describe this to you, it's in some ways it's very Zen. It's very Zen Buddhist of paying very close attention to what's going on in your life. But what we do in our spirituality, we take it at least a step further in saying there's a reason for being in that kind of consciousness. And the reason for being in that kind of consciousness is so that I can make choices. Not only that, so that I can be aware of. See, it's not just being aware of where I left my shoes. It's being aware of what's going on with you. And that maybe I can hold you in love, I can hold you in compassion, because that is what you need at the moment. And that's what I need at the moment too. What I need is to hold you in compassion. Hold you in the truth of who you are. But you have to be present to win. You have to be aware enough to be able to make that choice. And so it seems to the personality or the ego consciousness, boy, that's a lot of work. Being aware all day long, I'm going to be exhausted. And to my personality or my ego consciousness, that's probably true. But it's not my ego consciousness or my personality that is becoming aware. It is my soul that is becoming aware. And my soul, wrapped in its own sense of awareness, relishes that. It's not work. To be aware that you're a child of God is just simply being aware of the truth. You don't have to work to get to the truth. Well, sometimes we do. We have to strip away all the stuff we put in the way. But in essence, the truth is always true. It's there. I don't have to do anything to get it. I don't have to make anything to happen to make that happen, because it's always there. It's not drudgery. Just don't worry about the incidentals so much. But just make believe that today, every once in a while, I stop and I ask myself, do you know how much you are loved? And just allow the answer to that question, however it comes to you, allow that to feed you. And then you can ask yourself, you wonder, does that really work? Or am I getting back, being fed, let's say, much more than I might be giving out in working on my level of attention, or my level of realizing the truth of who I am? I can't dismantle my prejudices unless I realize what they are. So it would be foolish of me to say, well, I'm not prejudiced. Of course I am. I'm not proud of that. But I grew up with a lot of judgments just like you did. And without me realizing it, they can get in the way of my relationship to you, no matter who you are. And they can only be healed, they can only be transformed when I recognize that I say, I don't like that I'm thinking that way, but here I am. I don't like that I'm holding on to that thought. I don't like the way I'm responding to this person or that person. But here it is. Once I become aware of that, then spiritually speaking, I have a way of being able to allow that or work on that transforming. But as long as I'm kind of pushing it, I don't want to look at that part of me. That part of me is awful, stinks. I don't want to look at that part of me. That part of me is wrong, it's bad. It's not wrong, it's bad, it's limited. That's what it is. And even though I might not want to look at my own limitations, the only way they're going to change, the only way they're going to transform is by looking at them and recognizing and accepting them as being part of, not even part of who I am, but part of my perception of who I am. Now, I'm not making awareness into a trap. This is not about judging myself. That's what my personality thinks. If I become too aware, I'm going to be judging myself every 5 minutes. It's not about that at all. It's about once I am aware that I can make choices in my life, that I can look at things differently, that I can look at myself differently. Compassion, my love, my caring for you, and your caring, can only exist in higher consciousness. In lower consciousness, all that exists is selfishness, separation, fear, and anger. And I got mine, now you get yours. So how do I know? What do I do differently here? Do I have to read this book or go to that workshop or read this book or do this or do that or do this or... No. As I sat with this morning again, I became aware of something, a piece of wisdom that was passed on to me years ago. It didn't come from a physical form teacher. It came in my mind or in my heart. And it's too wonderful and too simple for me to have made it up myself, so I know it came from another source, which is perfectly okay. That's where most good stuff comes from anyway. It didn't come from my head. But it was really simple in making this distinction about, let's say, being awake, being aware, or being asleep, or being unaware. And it's something that we can all make choices about when we are aware enough. Simple thought, simple idea, simple question. Does what I am thinking, or what I am projecting, or what I am acting upon right now, does it open my heart, or does it close my heart? If it closes my heart, I can still go down that path if I'd like to. If it opens my heart, then I know that I'm on that road of awakening and awareness. Does it open my heart? Does it close my heart? A Buddhist teacher once said, enlightenment is the ego's biggest disappointment. Because my ego has an idea of what it's going to be. You know, my halo is going to glow. I'm going to walk around like the Buddha. I'm going to be like this. I'm going to be Jesus in transformation. It's not like that at all. I can't tell you what it's like because I'm not there yet. But see, that's another thing. I remember one of my teachers asked me one time, "What do you want?" I said, "I want to be enlightened." She said, "How come you know you're not?" Stopped me dead in my tracks. What she was saying and what she was asking was, you know, your ego thinks it knows what enlightenment is, but your soul already knows. That is the truth of who you are. We're all going to have moments, times, of waking and sleeping, of being aware and not being aware. It's not about judging that. But when I wake up again, when I become aware again of, oh, I could choose differently, I could see peace instead of this, however we might be talking about it. When I become aware again, then I have another choice. I have a choice of beating myself up for falling asleep, which, by the way, is sort of a natural thing for us human beings to do, or to become unaware. Or I can be grateful for this opening now in my life, and possibly in yours as well, for being loving, for being compassionate, to be in the truth. There's no sense having a gift, a spiritual gift, unless you are aware enough to have the ability to work with it. So I wonder for myself this morning, and I'll wonder out loud for you, what spiritual gifts remain inside of you and remain undiscovered? Like the parable of Jesus talking about the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field. How many treasures, how many spiritual gifts are buried in our unconscious or in our sense of unawareness that are just waiting to be used? Or to keep it really, really simple, how much love inside of you is waiting to be given? And the only way it can be given, and the only way it can be received, is by being awake and aware enough to let that happen. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be free of suffering. May all beings remember who they are. God bless.